Welcome to The Explainer. I'm Dr. Chem, and today we're diving into what I think is a truly cinematic educational journey. We're going to explore one of the absolute most beautiful transformations in all of mathematics. I'm talking about the journey from totally chaotic, unpredictable raw data to perfectly predictable statistical models. We're getting into the deep mechanics of sampling distributions. Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever actually wondered why things like human height, exam results, or even just random measurement noise in an engineering lab all seem to naturally find their way to the middle? I mean, it feels almost like magic when you look at raw numbers out in the wild, but it's actually a mathematical certainty. Today, we're uncovering exactly why this happens and exactly how we measure it. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, the bell curve phenomenon. Second, the anatomy of a sample. Third, the mean and variance. Fourth, sampling real-world proportions. And finally, number 5, the central limit theorem. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The bell curve phenomenon. The shape of the universe. So, when countless small, totally independent random factors combine, whether it's genetics affecting a plant's growth, random environmental effects, or tiny microscopic timing errors, they naturally form a very specific symmetric pattern. We call it the normal distribution. And its predictability is governed by the empirical rule. The numbers you're seeing here show exactly how disciplined this curve really is. Literally, about 68% of our values will fall within exactly one standard deviation of the mean. 95% fall within 2, and a massive 99.7% fall within 3 standard deviations. Suddenly, the chaos of the universe actually has very, very strict boundaries.
And I really want to emphasize that this is absolutely not just some abstract theory kept in dusty old textbooks. Look at the heavy hitters listed here. We're talking tech giants like Amazon and Google, massive financial institutions like Citadel, JP Morgan, Jane Street. They mathematically rely on the normal distribution every single day. They use it to model reality, build their machine learning algorithms, and optimize literal billion-dollar quantitative finance decisions. It's a real game changer.
Section 2. Anatomy of a sample. Measuring the madness.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it shows the fundamental mechanics of pulling a sample. Before we can understand a massive population, we have to master how we sample from it, right? Our sampling environment actually changes based on 2 pretty simple rules: whether we replace our data after picking it, and whether the exact order of our picks actually matters. Depending on these constraints, if you're picking k selections from n elements, the total possible outcomes shift drastically. They can go from simple powers like n to the power of k, all the way to those incredibly complex factorial equations you see right there.
Okay, so once we successfully take those samples, we need to map them out properly. A sampling distribution is simply the distribution of a specific statistic, like the mean, calculated over literally all possible samples of a specific size, which we call n. And right alongside that is our primary tool for precision, the standard error. This is simply the standard deviation of our sample mean. It essentially tells us exactly how far off our sample's average is likely to be from the true underlying population average.
Section 3. The mean and variance. Finding the center.
So how do we mathematically pinpoint the exact center and spread of these distributions? Well, look at the elegantly simple relationship we have here. For any population with the true mean of mu, the mean of our sampling distribution is going to be exactly equal to the population mean. There is no tendency for a sample mean to fall systematically above or below it. It perfectly mirrors reality. But notice that standard deviation formula right below it, the standard error? It's the population standard deviation, sigma, divided by the square root of n. This means as our sample size n grows, that denominator gets larger and our error visibly shrinks.
But there is a highly counterintuitive catch built right into that standard error formula. Because we're dividing by the square root of n, our precision improves incredibly slowly. Think about it. If you want to cut your standard error in half, you don't just need twice as much data. You need 4 times the data. Quadrupling your sample size is the heavy, real-world price you have to pay just to have your mathematical uncertainty. Kind of wild, right?
Let's apply this variance logic to a highly practical, well, maybe a slightly playful scenario. Imagine we're studying 2 distinct species of green beings on Mars. Species 1 has a mean of 32 and a variance of 60. Species 2 has a mean of 22 and a variance of 70. Now, if we want to find the variance of the sampling distribution of the difference between their means, the variance sum law dictates that we actually add the variances of their sampling distributions together. 60 plus 70, we don't subtract them. When comparing distinct groups, the uncertainty always compounds.
Section 4.
sampling real-world proportions when data is categorical. Up to this point, we've talked purely about continuous averages. But what happens when our data is categorical? Like a simple yes or no. Think about the mechanics of voter polling. Let's say the true objective reality of an entire population is that 60% prefer candidate A. We denote that true population proportion as pi equaling 0.60. But if you randomly poll a discrete sample of 10 voters, just by pure chance, 7 out of 10 might say they favor candidate A, giving you a sample proportion, a p-value, of 0.70. A single sample proportion is always going to naturally fluctuate around the true population reality just due to sheer random chance.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we capture and measure that exact fluctuation. Because unlike the mean, a proportion doesn't actually depend on the population variance, which, honestly, is often an unknown quantity anyway. The formula for the standard deviation of a sample proportion is derived directly from successes and failures. We take the sample proportion p, multiply it by 1 minus p, divided by n, and then take the square root. That simple equation perfectly calculates our standard error for categorical data.
Now, since these proportions are completely discrete, meaning you can have 5 out of 10 voters or 6 out of 10, but you can never have a literal 5.5, how on earth do we use our continuous, smooth, normal bell curve here? Well, the mathematical rule of thumb is quite strict. As long as our sample size n times the true proportion pi and n times 1 minus pi are both greater than 10, the approximation actually holds. It just means the data is large enough and not heavily skewed towards 0 or 1, so it seamlessly morphs into a beautiful, continuous, normal distribution.
Section 5. The central limit theorem, the bridge to inferential statistics.
That magical structural transformation leads us directly to the bedrock of our field. So, the crucial point is captured perfectly in this singular mathematical law, the central limit theorem. It dictates that as your sample size n increases, the sampling distribution of your mean will inevitably form a normal, bell-shaped distribution. And here is the truly breathtaking part of this whole shebang. It does this completely regardless of what the original population's distribution looked like. As long as the variance is finite, a large enough sample size mathematically forces wild, chaotic, totally unstructured raw data into perfect, predictable, normally distributed order.
The central limit theorem is absolutely not just some abstract curiosity for academics. It is the literal reason that researchers can generalize findings from a tiny sample to an entire global population. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to really ponder. How much of our incredibly complex modern world, from the machine learning models at tech giants to clinical trials in medicine to the economic models shaping massive public policy, how much of it would completely and utterly collapse without this single, elegant mathematical theorem? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, keep exploring the structures hidden inside the chaos.